Call this meeting to order. Let's look at the consent agenda. Does anyone have any, or on the agenda itself? Anybody have anything on the agenda itself? Any questions? I'll give you a second to look at the consent agenda and see if there's any questions you want to ask about it. Mr. Blair?
The rejecting the portable relocation, what's the next effort? Just rebid?
We had actually, in connection with portables, we had 30 requests for portables. And we've got 13 that are available to move. And we've kind of whittled down the principal's request to the point where we're going to move 13 so we don't have to go out and buy some more. Also, there's a potential for another, 26 to 28, I believe, for that 4th and 5th grade reduction, part of that HERO program. But once again, those principals just make do as best they can, even though they have needs that they don't have, classroom-wise, if that makes any sense. We just don't have the money to go out and buy portables, do we, Jeff?
We're not going to have it this year.
Nope.
Any other questions on that? Did that answer your question, Mr. Blair?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Anything else on a consent agenda? I know Mr. Kelly requested a little bit extra time on that if he wanted to look at some things, so I'll give him a chance to look a little bit. Any discussion? All right, let's go on. If somebody thinks of something later on, we can come back to it. Let's go on to number 8.
First of all, 7, we'll have a spotlight on Thursday night. 8, quarterly report cards. I hope everybody got a copy of what we used this year at Stewart's Creek. There's been overwhelming support. Well, let me just read it first and then we'll discuss it. Stewart's Creek Elementary School is completing the pilot year quarterly report card schedule. Parents and teachers overwhelmingly support the change. Comments are included under tab 2 within the board agenda. With the success of this pilot program, we believe a quarterly report card will be beneficial in grades K through 8 when accompanied by an informative progress report midway through the grading period. High schools will remain on a 6-week grading period for the 2010-2011 year, and we're going to recommend that you adopt a K-8 quarterly report card. Included in the bookmarks is a letter from the elementary principals requesting that we go to a quarterly report card. Also, there was a survey done of parents and by Stewart's Creek. I think there was roughly 30% of the parents, I think that's what Mr. Dago said, responded to that survey, and he said 99% of them were in favor of the report card. They felt like it covered all the bases, gave them ample time to recover in case they got behind, and I think by and large the principals are just really excited about going to a quarterly report card. We've insisted with them that they do that 4.5 week progress report, and we'll have that as part of the calendar. We'll set the dates for report cards to go out. We'll also set the date for when the 4.5 week progress reports go out. I think it's something that not only teachers and principals like, but also parents like, maybe even more. We're going to encourage the board to approve that. Also Thursday night, Mr. Zago will be here in connection with the art spotlight. He said if there are any questions, he'll be more than happy to answer them with respect to how they were at Stewart's Creek.
Any questions? Blair?
This is actually supposed to cut down on some of their paperwork, is that correct? Did I understand that reading through.
I think that's true, don't you, Don? I think it does cut back on some of their paperwork.
If they have a robust mid-reporting progress report, it's probably not gonna cut back on it a whole lot. It's gonna give the children a chance, the students a chance to recover. You know, in 6 weeks, you get 3 weeks in there, and you send a progress report on turn this home and all, they have almost no time left to turn something around. That's the beauty.
What is the progress report in here? What does that look like compared to the,
We can get that, the one he did, we can get that.
but that, would that be standardized, I assume?
Yes.
We're probably gonna get together, you know, they're in the middle of the teacher access to that,
Right.
probably with this approved, we'll get together, take a look at what he did, he knows what worked, didn't work, and we'll try to, we'll roll that out to others.
But in answer to your question, it will be standardized. And it was this year with Stewart's Creek. I mean, otherwise, I think you give, not that teachers wouldn't do exactly as they should, but, you know, we don't want some parents getting the information that other parents aren't able to get, so.
I think it's a great idea as long, and it sounds like you are firm about the progress reports, because if they, otherwise it's the opposite of a great idea.
Yeah.
But if they actually follow through with that, that's a good thing.
I've always thought that the quarterly is a better way to do that, but you do have to have a good midterm. It's just the way to work on it too. Any other questions or comments about that? Okay, number 9, facilities.
Back to it. Smyrna Middle School greenhouse. Dr. Kennedy, Smyrna Middle School principals requested permission to construct 35 by 50 greenhouse on the school campus at the rear of the building. The site plan is included under the agenda tab. 3, for location clarification, the greenhouse will be constructed no cost to the board. There'll be donations from Rayburn Insurance, Ace Hardware, Smyrna Rotary Club, Hollinshead Head Concrete, and other community entities and individuals. Rutherford County's Engineering and Construction Department will review the plans and make sure that adherence to standard specs, that there are adherences to standard specifications. School will be responsible for all local and state building code adherences. And we're going to recommend you do that.
Do they have a teacher to do that down there?
I think it's affiliated with a club. It's not a VOTEC class. One thing we were checking with Ms. Kennedy, Dr. Kennedy this afternoon, was all the particular ways it would be utilized. I know you guys are contributing. I don't know if you've talked to her about it. I don't know all the particular uses, and I apologize for that, but we'll have that for you tomorrow. Mr. Odom couldn't get her.
I think it's going to be named after Chairman Wise, too.
Yeah, right.
Depends upon his contribution, I think.
Everything I've done. Anything else? It ought to be named after Donald Jernigan, if there's anybody. He spent a long time down there.
Yes, sir.
Any other
Chairman,
questions?
I assume that we have enough space without infringing with any other problems on that. I assume
We used
I'll
to
have
have
to take
one,
care
didn't
of
we,
this
Mr.
now.
Jones?
We used to have one down.
I think it's in the same place. They're going to put it right where it was, yeah.
We converted it to, put a, art facility in there. Plenty of electricity, set up a keel, different thing.
Right.
It's not on the same side of it. They didn't tear that one down, did
Any other questions? All right, B.
Sorry. Mr. Wrights, Principal Smyrna High, has requested permission to construct a 14 by 58-foot addition to the existing football field house. The addition will be concrete block and metal roof on a concrete slab. Proposed addition will house additional lockers for the existing overcrowded locker room. The addition will be constructed at no cost to the school board. Funds for the project will come from a Home Depot grant of $5,000, donated concrete and labor from Hollinshead Head Concrete, and the Smyrna High School Quarterback Club will cover the balance of the cost. Rutherford County Schools Engineering and Construction Department will inspect the project regularly for adherence to standard specifications. Smyrna High School will be responsible for adherence to all local and state codes, and we're going to recommend that you approve construction of the Smyrna High School Fieldhouse addition as presented at no cost to the board.
Questions?
I'm gonna make a comment on that. Once again, we got Boosters Club jumping in there, and we got Hollinshead Concrete. We saw his name on there twice. You recall, last year, we presented him with a plaque, all he's done on anything in the county. And you know, those field houses, a lot of them were built back when they had 1,000 kids and 30 and 40 kids go out. Now you've got, well over 120, 30 kids that play football at any of those big high schools, and facilities are inadequate, and it oftentimes falls right back on the quarterback club to go back in there and do that, so we don't have to tap into our budget. So good job, Boosters Clubs.
Questions? Any other comments? Financial matters.
Baseline assessment of Rutherford County School System copiers and printers by Optimizon. $12,000 proposal is for Optimizon's K-12 baseline assessment, which will provide a foundation for understanding current copier and printer expenditures and performance. Optimizon is a vendor-neutral consulting and professional services firm that helps reduce copying and printing costs. They analyze the copiers and printers at all of our schools and review the existing copier contracts. They guarantee that they will identify at least $120,000 per year in achievable savings. Mr. Sandvik has seen the proposal they prepared for the Wilson County schools. The analysis phase will show us our high cost and high usage areas. We can start to make some changes when we have that data. Optimizon can also help us streamline vendor selection and monitor our current and future copier contract in order to maximize our equipment and hold down cost. And we're going to recommend that you approve Optimizon's $12,000 proposal for K-12 baseline assessment of systems, copiers, and printers. Two things come to mind. Each school pretty much negotiates their own contract with various vendors now, which ultimately results in probably different charges, different prices per copy, etc. What we hope to do by this is for these guys to identify potential cost savings in a large amount, maybe go out for an RFP, select one vendor to eventually come in and provide copiers throughout the county for all schools. Now, some of them may be obligated for a year or 2 or 3 years down the road, but eventually those contracts will expire, and whomever gets the RFP will take those over at a cheaper charge price, right, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
So I think there are some really big savings in store for some of the schools by doing this, we hope. And these guys were principal in Oswald. I can tell you, a big part of your money goes for copier charges. I can promise you that. Whole lot.
Questions, comments? Wayne?
On the Wilson County proposal, is that something they've already done for Wilson County?
Yes, I think.
The initial analysis, yes, sir.
What were the areas of savings for Wilson County?
And I went for the presentation of this baseline assessment, and there was one of the schools where the average cost was running about 5 cents per copy, as opposed to 2 cents. Some of the schools used the same grade structure would use many times more copies than another school. So you get into looking at, okay, why? But yeah, we have a lot of money. We probably have well over 40 million copies a year made throughout the system. There's the potential to maybe save as much as a half cent a copy, which is $200,000 or so. And the expenditures are either in the general purpose, well, there's some in the general purpose school fund, probably some flow through federal projects, the cafeteria funds, and every single school's set of books. So that the data is spread out everywhere, and they will go through and gather that.
Questions?
I think Jeff might have partially answered it. Is copying one of those things that schools have to generate some of their own revenue to pay for?
Yes. Yep.
Is that why they've been given the latitude to negotiate their own contracts?
Most of the schools have moved to getting copiers off the state contracts, so the state has done that negotiation. But some still, occasionally we will take one to the county commission that is not on the state contract.
Paul, your question?
Every time I hear about these studies, you know, you see the results of them, but then you have to implement all these.
You have to what, Mr. Jernigan?
Implement.
Yeah.
And then with the setup, with each school primarily being responsible for the financial well-being of the copy, are we looking at policing that some way? Or are we looking at how, we're gonna spend $12,000, but is this going to reap a benefit? Are the principals on board with saying, hey, if it comes back showing that we can do this, are they going to be ready to do it? Or what are we gonna do?
You know, it's a fair question. I think at the end of the day, we aspire to have one vendor take them over. Now, there'll still be accountability in the schools with regards to how many copies they generate, et cetera, but we should have a cheaper rate per copy for that school. Now, there'll still be assessed charges, and they'll probably still want to limit the number of copies that a teacher copies, because if they don't, it eventually costs their accounts more. But they should be getting it at a cheaper rate, and based on the number of copies we now print or run, as Mr. Sandvik said, versus a half-cent copy, that should save us substantial money. But again, we're not really taking out of their hands, you know, how many they allow to be run and all that. We're basically hope to arrive to a point where we're just getting it done cheaper. And, you know, I don't think it's as, you know, I know we had the same concern with the cafeteria. I think, but I think ultimately as a principal, and we've been one, I think I would view it as a good thing. Wouldn't you think so, Jeff?
I think the potential savings and the realizable savings are enough that it's worth looking at. Until I saw the Wilson County proposal, I mean, I was definitely open to it, but when I saw that proposal, I thought, okay, there are some things we could start doing day one. The other feature that they offer, which I couldn't put in condensed enough to make sense, they will, and I don't know how fees would run on this, they will take over monitoring and enforcing service contracts. They will write that into the RFP so that if a drum is to be replaced after 500,000 copies, then they would monitor remotely that copier, and when it got time, they would require, our RFP, the contract would require that it be replaced. They would monitor that it got replaced. Right now, your copy machine providers will replace something when it breaks down, increasing our cost per copy, increasing downtime, probably shortening the life of our copiers. That's what folks do. They will come up with a contract and monitor to make sure that happens. Jeff Blood is the representative's name We were talking in terms of 200, or he was talking in terms of 200 copiers throughout the system. We may have more than that.
Yeah, I bet we do.
I bet we do too.
Central office included in this.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Any other questions or comments about this? Before we go on to the next item, Mr. Gill, I'd like to say something. Mr. Holliday, would you raise your hand out there? Mr. Holliday is running for my seat, so everybody ought to get to know him, shake hands with him before we leave. Seems like a pretty nice fellow to me.
That was an unpaid political announcement, I assume, right?
Well, he's got a lot of airtime here.
Okay.
Okay, let's go on to number 11.
2010, 2011 school bell times. We're going to recommend that you approve the school start times and end times as reflected on this tab. Changes made from the current bell times will be as follows. Kilter Elementary will start 45 minutes earlier with a plan to run buses to elementary only. The new bell time will be 7:30 to 2:30, pardon me. Last Cassidy Elementary will start 30 minutes earlier, and they'll run from 7:30 to 2:30. Oakland will start 5 minutes later with a plan to allow a little more time for the shuttle bus coming from Central Magnet. New bell time will be 8:15 to 3:15. Central Magnet School's bell time is 8 to 3. Oakland Middle, 8 to 3. Whitworth and Cannon, 7:50 to 2:50. Now, we have whittled down the number of buses that we'll need to 9 next year. We whittled it down to 9. We'll negotiate. Anyway, we're working on that, and we're bringing on a shuttle.
Negotiations haven't finished.
We're bringing on the shuttle from Smyrna, Laverne area to Central. We got the 2 new schools opening up. We're basically hauling some kids a little further out of town than we were. And we typically add about, 6 buses a year anyway, Mike, 6 to 8. So we're working on that now. And that's go ahead, Mark.
And that reminds me, we had discussion, I don't know, 6 months, a year ago, about maybe allowing kids who might want to go to the IB program at Oakland to ride that bus, or are you still investigating that?
I thought we already voted on that, didn't we?
Did, well,
Yeah. We carry them there.
yes, didn't we?
Yes, we did. We decided to do that.
So we're going to implement that next? and
Yes.
If there's interest?
That's part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the bell time, Don?
I have a question about running buses for elementary only. In the rural areas, if we have rural areas anymore, that's an unusual thing. How much is that going to add to the cost?
Well, we think that with the number of buses that we're going to utilize and with where those locations and middle schools are, that we can take away putting all of them on one bus. In other words, we think there's enough elementary school students to make a run with just elementary school, and then your Oakland or your middle school and your high schools will still run together. That's the plan.
Isn't that based on time restraints and the ability to whittle down the number of buses that we have to put online? See, at one time we thought we might, I really didn't let this out for public consumption, need 15 buses. And I said, there's no way. That's the reason I thought we were at 9. But we have gotten it down some, but it was by doing specifically what you said, running an elementary run, then I'm also run a middle high school run. Yeah.
We think we can do that. We think we'll be able to utilize that. Of course, that's an optimum situation as it is now. You've got many parents that would like for us to only run elementary on the bus by itself. Sure would. And we hope that we'll be able to do it. We think we can.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I need to ask, what is the earliest times that our children are picked up at this time of year?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. I didn't realize that they were that early, but I know, of course, Monday was the first day we had on the new time, and I saw some kids being picked up around 6, and it was absolutely dark. And of course, obviously, just to be a couple of weeks, but it was a little more danger, I guess, involved in that. But I didn't realize that they were actually getting that early until I happened to see it Monday morning. I was out doing a little scouting, and it was awfully dark. So, I don't know if we can do anything about that, I don't guess.
I don't know. Any other questions? Let's, on general discussion, I've got a couple of questions, Mr. Gill. Number one, when are we gonna get to see the budget? And number two, we were gonna work up something about high schools, where they were gonna be built or whatever first, or what order. Have y'all done any thinking on
I
that
think
yet?
we're gonna meet here in the next week or two on the high schools, and maybe put it on the agenda a month or two out.
Okay.
The, what was the other question? We had
Budget.
the budget. We've got some dates set that I think we emailed you, for when we start our budget process, did we, Jeff?
Well, those were dates to go when they went to the county commission and everything. I'm thinking about when we're gonna see it.
I have not had a chance to talk to Mr. Gill about this. Given,
You're not keeping it from us, are you?
well, if I had any information,
Is that a laptop?
I believe that it's like the third week in April before I will have any information from the state.
Okay, I just kinda wanted a
Yeah, I just
ballpark
had
figure where we would get to see it.
really line at this point.
I mean, hopefully we get to see it a couple times before we come in and meet with the county commission on it in here. That's
It may
my
be very
concern.
preliminary, but
Okay,
absolutely.
okay. Mr. Blair?
Or are we going to present it like we did last year, just give it to them rather than Terry? I think we.
We hadn't really talked about it. I don't see a whole lot of tears this year. Do you, Jeff?
No, sir.
I mean, I think we're gonna, I don't wanna.
How do you spell the tears?
Which depends on which kind of tears you're talking about.
I see a lot of tears, actually. We've had obviously a lot of discussions on budget, but, you know, if we could provide the services we provided this year, that'd be a wonderful thing.
Any other questions or comments or discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gill, have we looked as far as since the colleges, they do their grades online. I think if you want to see what you make, is this right, Dr. Burns, that if you want to know what your grades are, you have to go online? And I don't know how much paper that would save, but is there a possibility of doing something like that for the high schools sometime in the future?
You know, I don't think we've done any real research on that, have we? I mean, there's some grade programs out there where a teacher can enter their grades on, but we haven't had a formal discussion with respect to posting all grades online.
Well, I imagine there's a
Amy,
lot
what
of
have we
kids
done
that have
over that?
computers.
We've got some doing it.
Yeah, but we haven't mandated anything.
Right, all the teachers have that availability through the program we provide, Making the Grade, and so that's available
Yeah.
for them to post online if they choose to do so.
Any other questions? Surely somebody's got a question. Mr. Jernigan, you look like you've got a question.
Well, I was just following up. I wonder how many are using that.
Let me ask you this in connection with that question. Is that, I mean, would some of them view it as an extra burden to have to go in there and put them all online versus, you know, I mean, if they're not calculating grades, if they're not entering grades and averaging, they're just putting them online, are they going to say, we just don't have time to do that?
Well, it's an electronic grade book that they have, so if they're keeping their grades there already, then it's just a simple posting.
Okay. So, in other words, it would substitute for entering them in the grade book and doing all those things. I mean, they simply could enter them there, average them out, and reflect them online.
Correct.
Which is probably
Maybe
what
we
lot
could
of
get a
people do.
presentation on that, a spotlight on it, see
All
how
right.
it works. Yeah.
We'll do that for you. And I'll try to
All
get
right.
some numbers for Thursday night to see how many people are actually doing that.
All right, yeah, let's plan to do that.
Okay.
Thanks. I want to say one thing.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, James, Mr. Evans and I today were talking about zoning exemptions. We'll be releasing those forms pretty soon. We were going over the anticipated enrollment in a lot of our schools. And once again, I don't think it's too surprising that probably, 70% of the schools will be opening up at pretty much capacity.
A little over half of 24 out of 45.
Okay. Almost all the high schools, the only one have any room might be Oakland and, what else? Eagleville High School, even though they've got portables out there, they got a few seats in their high school per se. The middle schools, it's almost frightening to say, but Oakland may very well open up with 1,000 the first day in anticipation of getting a lot of those city kids as part of it, in James. Yeah. And, you know, I don't think we want to go back and revisit and say, hey, you know, if you're a city resident, you gotta, you know, you may have to take a back seat to the county resident, because that doesn't sit well with any of us. But I think Siegel's gonna be pretty much crowded. Oakland may be. Rockville will probably be 950 or above. Only two places have any room will be Whitworth, Buchanan, and Christiana probably push 900 too, is what we're thinking there. Laverne Middle will be overcrowded. Rockville Middle ought to be about 950. So even though we built these new schools, they're still all gonna be packed. I don't know. So anyway, we'll probably begin by saying, hey, we're not taking zoning exemption here unless there's a real hardship. And I think that's the way we gotta do business, and anyway, that's around the corner.
Any other discussion? You gonna tell us about your moderating ability?
No, sir.
Guess we just gotta wait and watch?
That would depress the audience if I did that.
Any more discussion? All minds at ease. Meeting adjourned. See you Thursday night. Well, tomorrow, we got a...